The next step is getting all the gear together for new brakes. So here's the old drum hub. Here's the new one. Been sitting in the shop a bit. It's a little dusty. Here's the new brakes. A lot of times on brakes, it's cheaper to buy the whole component or the whole thing as opposed to separate components. These ones here, the shoes don't look too bad. The magnet looks a bit worn. Again, I'll just keep those in the shop as spares for whatever. So new brake assemblies, new hub drums, new bearings, the seats. These already have the seats in them, so I won't have to use these. We'll reuse the old dust cap. Well, maybe I'll buy a new dust cap just for looks. The castle nut, the big washer, we'll reuse those. And then some trailer wire, 14 gauge trailer wire. So there's two wires in there, black and white, but it's encased in a protective sheath. So that'll be for hooking up the wires here on the brakes. They'll just tie into these two wires here. It doesn't matter which one you tie them into. There's the info on the wire there. So it's 214 Arctic Flex, it's called, this stuff. This should be good. There you can see those two 14 gauge wires encased in this rubber sheath. Now you'll notice on the brakes they do have the magnet here at the bottom, this armature here. So this will be on the bottom, this will point towards the front of the trailer, so there is a left and a right side. So be fully aware of that. The first step is just taking the corresponding brakes. So again, magnet down, this point towards the front of the trailer, which is that way. And you'll have the flange on here with the 4 openings for the bolts. So these 4 bolts will just go in like that. And then just snug up the nuts on the back. Again, I believe these are a compression nut. Same as the ones for here, whereas they don't need washers. Just try and tighten them up evenly, do a crisscross pattern. So here's your 2 leads for your brake. I'll go do some research online, see if they have a torque specification for these. Right now I'm just going to snug them. Here we go. Now it's a matter of going over to the hub and drum and packing the bearings and then just putting it on here. So I did inspect the spindle on that. They seem to be pretty okay. The bearings, they ride up here and here, I think. There's a part, I'm not sure if you can see here, the metal where it's not machined properly, but that won't interfere with the actual bearing. So that's not a problem. So they're clean. Well, actually what I'll do is I'll clean them off again. I had put some grease on there because it was raining and I'd covered it with a plastic bag. But I'll just clean these all off, pack the bearings, set the seal, and then just pop the hub on here. For my particular axle, this is the size that I need. So the inner and outer bearings right there. There's your bearing seats. Like I say, they're already installed. They're already installed in these hub drums. Oh, and there's your seal for the back. That'll end up, this is the inside of the brake drum. So that seal will end up going there after everything's packed. Before packing your bearings, just double check that your numbers all match, so you have the right size bearings. So that goes in, fits nicely over the spindles. The numbers match with the old one, and my front one. There we go. So that's how they'll essentially be when they're on the inside. So that's good. So I have to pack the bearings now. So you want to push that You want to push the grease up through here, up through the bearing, so it starts popping out on this side here. And then just give it a roll like this every once in a while. Just want to make sure everything's covered. Looks like it's come all the way through. Just roll it around a bit, make sure they're all getting coated nice. Just to make sure, I'm going to put a little extra in there. It looks pretty good. So now for now, actually what I'm going to do with this excess stuff, I'm just going to stick on the inside here. Put a little extra in there. Just as your wheels are spinning around, this grease will cover everything. A little bit on the race there. Okay, I'll just set that in there now like that. Okay, now it's a matter of tapping the seal in. Look at these gloves off. Now I just get my seal and we'll tap that into place gently, preferably with a rubber mallet. Start this up lightly with the rubber mallet. You don't want to go in it at an angle. Once I get it started, I'll just take a 2x4 little piece just to distribute the force. Looks pretty good, nice and flush. So there, the inner seal, or the inner bearings in, the rear seal. Now what we do is we go up and well, I'll pack this bearing, I'll pack the outer bearing there right now while I've got all the grease set up. Then this just goes out on the spindle. So the procedure for this bearing, same as that other one. And then I'll just set it in, it just sets in here on the outer race. Then it's just a matter of the spindle comes through here, put on the washer and the castle nut and a cotter pin through and you're good to go. Okay, I'll just put some grease on the spindle here. Make sure there's no grit or anything on the spindle. Don't do this on a windy day if you're in a dusty back alley. Okay, now with the inner bearing in place and the seal, and I've greased up the spindle here, make sure it's clean and grit free. Now it's just a matter of taking, so there's that packed drum. So there, that's, the drum slides on like that. Now I packed the inside of this with a bunch of grease as well. Now we'll take this other bearing, so that'll just pop in like that. There we go. There's some of this stuff. So now we take our washer, so it's got the flat edge on it there like that. There's my flat down there. There's different configurations too for these. Your axle might be a bit different. And now it's a matter of taking the castle nut, snugging it up. So I believe you snug it up as best you can and then back it off. I'll have to double check, I think a quarter turn or half turn. Find out, there's my hole there going across there where the cotter pin has to go in. Just so I know everything gets covered in grease. So you want to have a rough idea where it is. Okay, that's pretty tight. There's the hole there. I'm going to back it off just a bit there like that. You don't want it wobbly. And we'll take that cotter pin, put the old cotter pin through. And bend it up. Should be good, so it can't pop out. A little bit of play in that nut, that's okay. I'm going to double check, but I'm pretty sure that's okay. These aren't slopping around like this back and forth. That. Take my dust seal. I'll just put a little more grease in here. Can't hurt. I may get new seals so they look prettier, but these ones seem to be sealing okay, so my dust caps here. And again, we just tap those on. There, so we'll repeat this procedure for the other side, and then it's just a matter of hooking up the wires and putting the tires back on. There's going to be a bit of friction there right now. I'll have to, once the trailer's back on, I'll take them out, test them out, wear them in a bit. On this trailer, it's got all the brackets here for routing the wires. Actually, they're the perfect size. You want to have it such, you don't want, once you wire these together, you don't want it too tight that there's so much tension on it that traveling down the road they'll snap apart. So you want some strain relief. So we'll hook those up, route everything. Today I'm going to route my trailer wire and then hook it up to the brakes. So I've got, here's all the guides here, and then it'll come up through the floor of the trailer somewhere around here. So here's your tongue, the body will start about here, and the wiring will all come up through here. And later on I'll tie it into the 7-way plug. So I just want to make sure I leave myself enough leeway here, and then I'll work back. So I run the wire, here there's front of the trailer, all down, this would be the driver's side, so all the way down through the loops. Okay, now when I got to this section here, I'm leaving a loop here because I'm going to have to cut this later, okay, but this is still that one continuous line coming down. Now it's running across to the other side of the trailer, over here. And this is going to give me, for my connection, this is on the side, so curb side. Okay, and again, that, so I'll tie that in there. That comes back here. There's that loop I had left. And then I've got an extra piece of wire. Now this is too long right now, but it comes through here, and it goes around, and I'm going to have to tie it on the driver's side. Tie that in. The original configuration of the trailer, they had it all tying in here in the middle. I figure it's easier just to have access one side. That way if there's any problems with the brakes, you just have a connection at that side, at that brake. You have a connection at this side, at this brake, and then just underneath there'll be the connections that tie them all together. So you don't have to go looking around too far. And then of course the connection up front. I'm going to make my connections at each brake before I splice that wire in the middle there and make the connection there. I just want to make sure I leave myself enough line. So instead of just wire nutting them together or wire morettes, I'm going to solder them together so I have a good connection, and I'll be covering them with this stuff here. So before soldering my wires together, I'll put this larger tubing on here. Just back it up out of the way. So I'll heat that up later and it'll shrink and seal everything. So now it's just a matter I'll wrap. It doesn't matter which wire to which. A good wrap there. The actual wires, this is this black and white stuff is 14 gauge. The actual wire coming out of the brakes is 16. I think on my little trailer I use 10 gauge for this, for the trailer wire, but it was overkill. Yep. Give them a tug there. They seem pretty good. That one as well. Now what I'll do is I'll take my heat shrink, put on each one. These are the smaller heat shrink. Type of glue sealant. It melts, keeps everything waterproof. You can see the sealant here that's oozed out, so that just keeps everything watertight. So these little ones, these are sealed. Now I'm just gonna, hopefully this one will be big enough. Now what I've done now is I've just taken a larger piece of that heat shrink tubing, put it over the main 14-2 wire, and those other ones that I just heat shrunk are inside here, so now I'll just heat this up and melt it. So now I've got the 2 green wires coming off my actual brake, and then double encased in these here, so they should be okay. Now it's just a matter of routing this one wire through here, giving it some strain relief, and then attaching it. Once I get the other side done, then attaching all 3 together just down here. So here's the wire coming off the brake, 2 green wires, a little bit of a loop here, and then over here where it comes through the holder, I've just pinched that off a bit so this isn't sliding back and forth. So that should be good there. And I'll double check once I get the wheels on that there's no interference. I've got both brakes tied in and the proper strain relief. Now here's the one coming over from, that's the door side of the trailer. This is the one going over to the brake on the driver's side. And this here is the main line going up to the 7-way plug, this one here. So I've spliced all 3 blacks together. Now I'm going to splice all 3 whites, solder them, put on one of those connectors, and seal everything up, and we should be ready to hook up the 7-way plug later on at the other end. We've got all 3 black wires sealed off. Now I'll do the white, and then I'll wrap everything up with tape. So here's from the driver's side, connections, strain relief. Come over to the other side. Here's where the driver's side comes up. Here's where the main one comes in, and here's the other one. From passenger side, everything's tied together, sealed in. Running under here, I might put some kind of another holder there, clamp. This runs down here, over to the other side. A little bit of a loop here, over. This is clamped in there, and a bit of strain relief here. Now I'll take a 12-volt battery and just touch the leads at the other end and see if they activate. Here's a quick little test. I've just got a 12-volt battery here. Negative's hooked up there, positive here. Like I say, it doesn't matter, negative or positive. Wheels spinning. Touch this to positive. Let's see what happens. There we go. So the brakes are activating. So I'll test the other side as well.